Okay, thank you everyone for coming along. Some of you I haven't seen for a while, and I'm very pleased to see you. Just want to start out by saying that it's always very nice to see all of you, but some of you haven't seen for a little bit, and so it's always very nice to see you again. All right, so tonight we're talking about pith instructions. If you have been around a while, you will know that pith instructions are really very important to the way we do things in our little sangha. And that is because they're also very important to the Dzogchen tradition in general and the Dzogchen Semde tradition in particular. So these teachings about pith instructions come from Kyabje Togden Amtrin, who gave them to Jameng Temple, my teaching partner, who gave them to me, and now I'll give them to you. They're fairly simple. Everything that we do is fairly simple, but that shouldn't cause you to think that that means that they're not profound or deep or valuable or beneficial, because they clearly very much are. So what we'll do is very short teaching about the nature of pith instructions, what they're for. Then we'll talk about how to use pith instructions in practice, because what we have noticed is that there's very little instruction on how to use pith instructions in the world. So there's some sort of there's a lot of talk about the pith instructions and how important they are, particularly to the Dzogchen tradition, but there's very little instruction on how to use them. Okay, so we have the pith instructions. What do we do now? And then after that, I'll let you ask questions about pith instructions and how do you apply them in your practice, so that so that you know how to use them. And then also we'll talk a little bit about how we know that our practice is working if we're using pith instructions, or any practice actually. We'll sort of cover that in a little bit. We'll always cover that to some degree, but we'll cover that in a bit more detail this time, because this kind of practice is very, very simple, and so it's very easy to underestimate it, and it's also very different to other forms of practice. So the markers of progress are very different. So we'll talk about that. All right. Okay, so we'll do this. I'll just do the instructions that came from Kyabje Togden Amtrin first. So this Dzogchen Semde meditation practice using pith instructions is to be used in conjunction with 3 essential contemplations: impermanence, Buddha nature, and emptiness. So in other traditions, there are a range of other foundational things that one needs to do. In the Dzogchen Semde, there's only these contemplations on impermanence, Buddha nature, and emptiness. They're the only absolute requisites in terms of before you begin to practice, and they are also a very major part of the practice. So using pith instructions on these 3 contemplations, so you choose a pith instruction on impermanence, you choose one on Buddha nature, and you choose one on emptiness, and combining it with resting in silent stillness. So I'll describe that in some detail later, what that means, resting in silent stillness. Pretty much it means either gazing at the sky or lying down in corpse pose. And that's the Dzogchen Semde way of trekcho, or direct knowing. So for those of you new to this particular way of practicing, practices such as trekcho and togyo and rushen and others are not mentioned in the Semde texts. They're part of the mainly Menagde tradition, which is much younger than the Semde tradition. They also appear in the Longde tradition. So this is very much not that. way of practicing, but it is equivalent. So, for example, Togden Amtrin he's actually very famous for saying so. The Semde practices are equivalent to Kyabje Togden, just different. All right, so the other major profound difference is Kyabje Togden, they're inside this Menagde tradition, which has absorbed a lot of Tantra. So a lot of generation stage and completion stage practice, so Kirim, Dzogchen, tantric practice, so visualizations, mantras, things like that. Semde doesn't include any of that. So you might see, like with Trekche Toyo, they would often insist that Nundro is a requirement as a preliminary, that doing at least the 3 roots retreat of, sadhana practice, Lama Yidam is essential before doing Trekche Toyo, etc., etc. There's this ladder one has to climb in those other traditions. That's not the case in Semde. In Semde, we jump right in, and the only real foundation is these contemplations. These I've described them before as universal understandings that are required, and they're not just intellectual understandings. They need to be heart awareness of these things. You need to have heart awareness of impermanence, a heart awareness of Buddha nature, and a heart awareness of emptiness. And this is how you do that through this Pith instruction process. So this short teaching instruction that came from Kyabje Togden Amtrin, it basically says you choose your own Pith instruction. Usually it would come from your teacher, but these days we don't necessarily have a lot of contact with a guru who's going to give us Pith instructions, right? So we can choose ones that are already in the environment, that are already published. Choose one in permanence, and then you don't need to memorize it. You can just read it. If of course you know it off by heart, that's fine too. But you don't need to know it off by heart. You just read it, and then you sit in silent stillness. I'll explain what that means in a minute, and then nothing else. So remember the 4 seals of Dzogchen Semde. Those of you who've been around a bit will know these. There is nothing to do. There is nothing to know. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to gain or attain. So those are the seals of this kind of practice. So when we say, you read the Pith instruction, you rest in stillness, that's it. That is it. There's no more. One of the reasons why the Semde is not very popular or fashionable is because of its simplicity. People want more stuff. They want more to do, they want more to know, they want to go places, and they want to gain or attain stuff, knowledge, wisdom, practice, accomplishments. They want to gain stuff, even if it's outer stuff like, knowing how to make tormas or knowing how to play the ritual instruments, etc., etc. They want to gain these things. Semde says, no, there is nothing to do, there is nothing to know, there is nowhere to go, there is nothing to gain or attain. It's very radical, which is why it is for the few, not the many. Not many people have it in them to practice this path. It's too challenging because it's so simple. As Dudjom Rinpoche said, and as I've quoted Dudjom Rinpoche saying in my new book, you can't see it, it's invisible. It's a very short quote, but I don't want to get it wrong. The difficulty of Dzogchen meditation is that it is too easy. On the surface, that seems like a fairly simple statement, but it's not. The reason people don't stick with Dzogchen Semde type practice is because they get bored and they move on. They want more to do. They want to know more things. They want to go to places, special places in particular, and they want to attain things. They want to gain and attain. So back to this Pith instruction style practice. Now, this is a practice path in the Semde tradition that is distinct and unique. The application of the Pith instruction with silent stillness. It's very much the norm in Semde, and it's also distinct, because the other distinct kind of practice styles are to do Guru Yoga devotion and just do that. So Togden Amtrin's pointed out in this instruction that if Guru Yoga is your thing, you can just do that. You can just do the Guru Yoga. It's enough in and of itself, the Guru Yoga, to liberate you, to free you completely. So now, with this particular practice style that Kyabje Togden Amtrin is encouraging, he's encouraging it to be divided up, to be done over a year of time. So you pick a Pith instruction on impermanence, and then you do that every day. You read it or remember it, or you can say it if you want, but not like a mantra. You just sort of say it or read it or remember it. And then you sit in silent stillness. Most of you will want to time how long you sit for, but putting a timer on it is actually counterproductive. So it's good to do when you have some time to do it, and rather than just go, oh, I've got 10 minutes and I'm going to do it now. That is quite counterproductive to this kind of practice. You need to be able to be sort of relaxed and let it be as it is. So you would do impermanence for a season, so for 3 months of the year. Then you would switch to a Buddha nature Pith instruction, read it, or you know it, think of it, and then sit in silent stillness for a period of time every day. You do that for 3 months, and then you move on to the emptiness Pith instruction. You read the Pith instruction, you sit in silent stillness, and you do that every day for 3 months. And then for the 4th quarter, you do Guru Yoga, and you do Guru Yoga in the form of a Pith instruction. So what we do in our lineage is we use Lama, be with me now. So we use that as a Pith instruction. However, as I've repeatedly said, whatever Guru Yoga works for you, or you feel connected to or passionate about, do that Guru Yoga. But it's better in this kind of practice setting, to use something sort of simple and in keeping with the Pith instruction ethos, I suppose. Now, Togden Amtrin has got a line here that I think is important about this Pith instruction way of practicing. This is shamatha and trekcha combined. So this is quite powerful. So it's like the foundational practice and kind of like the practice that cuts through to the true nature of mind combined in one. And you do it in each session, the Pith instruction and then the sitting in silent stillness. And Kyabje Togden Amtrin also said, this is the complete path of learning, contemplation, and meditation in every session. This is the swift path, Pith instruction of the Dzogchen Semde method of Trecho. So as I said, you do it over a year, one Pith instruction for each season, and the final Pith instruction is usually one about devotion, the Guru Yoga. We just use the Lama, be with me now. But I'll just repeat, if you are a dedicated Guru Yoga practitioner, just do the Lama practice for the whole year, where you do a little brief Lama, be with me now, or a little brief, it can be saying the name of your Guru, saying the mantra of your Guru, whatever, and then you sit in silent stillness. You do that every day for the entire year. And the idea is that if you do this, there will come a time. Okay, let's back up a bit. So oftentimes when these very simple practices are explained, people kind of go, how could that possibly work? And I often prod Jamyang to verbalize that, because I get asked, so I will prod him to sort of verbalize how it works, because Jamyang is a person who's fully devotional and goes on trust, faith, devotion. Just trusts, has confidence, it will work. But if you're a little more entangled in worldly stuff, you might want to know how exactly it works. So the idea, it works very simply actually. if you look at this, if you say after your pith instruction, right? That's seeding wisdom or knowledge, and then you sit in silent stillness. That's taking it to the heart. So even though it seems like nothing is happening, that pith instruction is going to the heart. The other thing that is kind of very interesting is that all pith instructions, irrespective of the topic, lead us to an experience of the ultimate view. The pith instruction is a device that the teacher gives the student to hold on to have and to hold, while the real work is being done in silent stillness. So the real work is done in the silent stillness. And but the pith instruction is something to have confidence in and put your trust in, while deeper revelations are percolating. So, and as you know, in the Dzogchen Semde, the view is established always through practice, not through study. So we don't do a whole bunch of study about, the nature of emptiness, the nature of the true nature of mind, the philosophical breakdown of how everything is and how everything works, because that doesn't speed up recognition of the true nature of mind. It doesn't. And in fact can block it, can slow it down. So in this kind of tradition, we take the view as the path, but we don't find the view through study or intellectual activity. The view is the practice experience itself. They're non-dual. The view is the practice experience itself. The view is Rigpa itself. The view is the true nature of mind itself. That is the view. There's no words to that. In the state of Rigpa, there are no words. There's no time. There's no past, present, future. There's no here and there. So there's no location. There's no space. There's no me and you. There's no dualistic phenomena at all. So you can't ascertain the view through study. Cannot be done. It is not able, you cannot verbalize this. You cannot put this in words. As soon as you are putting it in words, there's delusion. And not only delusion, but fabrication. One of the main reasons why words are problematic around this is that words mean different things to different people based on their context, their experience. So I had an interesting experience recently with someone around a word that for them meant something very negative, but in sort of a poetic Buddhist usage, it was positive. It was a very positive thing. But see, context. So in the sort of Western context, that word has a bit of a negative meaning. In a Dharma context, it's a positive meaning. So this is why words are a problem in trying to describe the nature of mind or Rigpa. Primordial, timeless awareness, non-dual awareness. So this is very simple, right? Profoundly simple. One of the things that I wanted to talk about just briefly was that how it works. So in this form of sky gazing, you're not doing any kind of cognitive shenanigans. You're not thinking anything. You're not thinking the sky is this and I'm extending my awareness out into the sky. That is not what we're doing. You're just looking, simply using your eyes, no more than that. Now, how this works is the mind and the brain, which are not the same thing, are essentially excitement machines. They want always something new. They want, and they also, the brain and the mind, the dualistic mind, they fabricate a reality out of what is, he's okay. Oh, out of what it's experiencing. They fabricate something. They fabricate a reality, right? So if you're just looking at the sky, not doing anything else, not thinking about it, not doing any prayers. Even in the Dzogchen tradition, Dzogchen Lingpa, when he put people into retreat doing this kind of thing, not this kind of thing, slightly different, just doing nothing, he would say, don't even think of me. Normally we would think that thinking of the guru is a very good, healthy thing. But in this context, any kind of cognitive shenanigans is doing something, and we're meant to be doing nothing. That doesn't mean, however, we can just sort of sit there and plan out what we're planning to do for the next day. However, your mind will wander. That's its nature. And we don't intervene in that. We don't intervene. At first, that will mean you just get swept away, right? You just get swept away. But over time, sitting still, looking at the sky in a relaxed sort of way, eventually there will be a break in that distraction, in that thought process. And this beautiful thing will happen. How do we say this? I don't want to create some kind of like structure here that doesn't really exist. So I'll just put it in simple English and we'll understand that it's flawed, right? You will become aware of mind, dualistic mind. You'll become aware of it. So where before you were swept away, not even aware that you were swept away sometimes, just, oh, suddenly an hour's gone, what have I been doing? You know, you've just been swept away. Eventually, if you stick with this, sitting still, silent, simply looking at the sky, night or day, or in corpse pose, which we'll talk about in a minute, eventually those thought patterns will peter out because you're not feeding them and you're not intervening. Intervening is feeding. And then you will be aware of dualistic mind. You'll be aware of it. And then from there, it really sort of speeds up and the mind settles. Joan doesn't like that phrase, the mind settles. So then the dualistic mind just dissolves, it's broken, it's cut. Not all at once necessarily, for some people maybe all at once, but it just happens over time. So don't be distressed by seemingly nothing happening. You know, I'm sitting here looking at this guy. I told Jumping a story today about a woman I knew who was a student of Chogyal Nobu, who in her sky gazing, she would just get completely distracted and nothing was happening, you know. And it turns out that she was sort of semi-falling asleep, you know. So she was getting sort of drowsy, but also she wasn't doing Guru Yoga as well. So Guru Yoga is a very important sort of thing. It's a very important part of this. Preferably, I think everyone should do outer Guru Yoga. I know there's this idea that somehow inner Guru Yoga, secret Guru Yoga, most secret Guru Yoga are superior or something. Not true. Outer Guru Yoga is just easier and it works exactly the same way. So it also is quicker to awaken the heart, which you kind of need. So that being said, if you do fall asleep while you're sky gazing, that's fine. It means you needed to sleep. It means you're tired. You need to sleep. Never sort of feel, never be a prison warden over your practice. If you fall asleep, it means you needed to sleep, right? If your mind runs, it's the nature of the mind to run. The dualistic mind will run. Not your problem. We just need to be persistent and consistent every day. Still, silent, eyes open. That's it. No more. No intervention of any kind. Remember, the 4 seals of Dzogchen Semde. There is nothing to do. You don't need to intervene. You don't need to intervene. There is nothing to know. There's nothing you need to know to awaken. Awakening is not dependent on information. on knowledge, on words, on stuff. It's not. There's nowhere to go. My backyard in Toowoomba is no less sacred than Bongaya. Now, that sounds like a radical, revolutionary thing to say. Likewise, your backyards are no different to anywhere else. Your Buddha nature is with you everywhere you are. That's what makes it sacred. Buddha nature makes things sacred. So wherever is Buddha nature is sacred. So where is that? That's everywhere. Everywhere. With every person, with every being. Sacred. Felt a bit school marmy then for a moment. Okay, so so the only pain of this kind of practice, there's always like a difficulty or a challenge with Dharma practice. It's never completely free and easy, right? With other things, there's like you have to be in these difficult postures for long hours and very taxing on the body, etc., etc. For in Vajrayana, you've got to do these visualizations. It's all very intellectually and cognitively challenging. You've got to learn how to do tomas, learn how to play instruments. It's all these challenges, right? The pain of this, the challenge of this, is the boredom, which will inevitably break. The boredom's not permanent, it's impermanent. But it's the only pain with this kind of practice, and it is the reason why most people just walk away from true Dzogchen practice. They want to have other things mixed in because of the boredom. You know, Jamming often says when people tell him that they're getting bored, he's like, good, don't challenge it, leave the boredom be. Boredom is fine. You know, boredom is actually an indication that the dualistic mind and the fascination machine that is the dualistic mind and the brain is tiring. And when you don't feed it, it will break. That machine will break. Inevitably. Not maybe, it will. So and likewise the boredom will dissolve. It will. And when it does, what you'll be left with is quite beautiful. Your true nature. Luminous, pristine, timeless awareness. So it's worth allowing the boredom and being with the boredom. It's worth it. It really is. Okay. Now, so we'll talk a little bit about how you know it's working. As I said, because it's so simple, it's really easy to underestimate it. It's also really easy to think, oh, nothing's happening, because it does take some time. It takes some time. As we've talked about often, Dzogchen Lingpa used to throw people into solitary retreat, practicing silent stillness for 90 days. Not allowed to do any prayers, not allowed to look at images, not allowed to read, not allowed to move, just total silent stillness for 90 days. And people would experience a benefit after that 90 days, universally. However, it's not to say it wasn't painful on the way through, you know. Boredom can sometimes feel quite painful. All right, so how do you know it's working? In other forms of practice, they list a whole heap of signs, you know, that it's working. Dzogchen Semde is not the same as that stuff. Just need to sip water. So the first thing is the 4 seals of Dzogchen Semde are also markers of progress. So remember, the first one is there is nothing to do. If you are wanting to do more things, even like samsaric things, but also Dharma things, if you want to do more things than you are doing, you haven't got there yet. You need to keep practicing, right? The second one is, do you still want to learn stuff? If you're still wanting to accumulate information, you still need to practice. Same with, do you know where to go? Are you still thinking there's somewhere else that's better than where you are? Then you have practice to do. And the final one, there's nothing to gain or attain. If you're still thinking, I want to learn how to do this practice or that practice, or I want to learn these things, you still have practice to do. If you want any of that stuff, these are signs that work needs to be done. Now, to know that the practice is really work, so that shows you when it's, when you need to keep going, you need to keep at the practice. And this stuff, what we call the guiding lights of awareness, are how you know if the practice is working, right? And the guiding lights of awareness are essentially the four immeasurables. Not quite, but they are joy, but priti, P-R-I-T-I, not mudita. So priti, which is a different kind of, mudita is appreciative joy. It's sort of more like gratitude or celebrating others' successes. Priti is just plain, simple joy. And it's usually felt in relation to solitude and nature, but also in relation to practice. It's different to mudita. So the first one, joy, is increasing. That means practice is working. Second one, love, is increasing. You find that you feel love for yourself and others to a greater degree than you did before. Third one, compassion. You are more compassionate toward others. This is a very profound sign of practice. If you look at sentient beings and just feel overwhelmed with this wish that they be free of suffering, and particularly the suffering that is being mired in dualistic mind, trapped in the painful, repetitive cycle of samsara. If you wish that more often, if you look at a being and wish, I wish they were not suffering, I wish they could be free, then your practice is really working. And the final one is equanimity. So there's different levels to this equanimity. Sometimes I call it contentment to talk about this other aspect of it. Or sometimes we call it ease, E-A-S-E, ease. So equanimity is a number of things. One is you treat all sentient beings the same, completely, now not coldly or in a detached sort of way, not a numb equalness. All sentient beings you meet with the same warmth and love, equal, whether they are your family, friends, strangers, or enemies. You meet them with the perceived enemies. There's no real enemies. You meet them with the same warmth and love. This is next door to enlightenment, It's a real sign of progress in practice. Another aspect of equanimity is that you treat everything that arises in the mind, so every thought you have, every feeling that arises, every perception you have, and everything that is in your world with the same warmth and evenness, fairness, right? So whether you're having pleasant thoughts or dark thoughts, you meet them with the same warmth. Because they're empty and impermanent and they're just passing through. There's no point getting upset by these things. You meet them with the same warmth. Like with anything that happens in your life, you meet with the same warmth. There's this saying about, a true yogi is a person, a true yogin is a person who is happy or content in every situation. So no matter what's happening, they're content. Nothing can disturb their contentment. So there are lots of stories from India, Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, Ladakh, of practitioners who, no matter what was happening, they were at ease, relaxed, and content. So if you are increasingly relaxed, no matter what's happening, if you're increasingly content, you don't want anything else. You don't want things to change. Things are fine. You're okay with it. You don't want it to be less. You don't want it to be more. It's fine. That is a profound sign of practice. And that one, contentment or ease, being at ease with everything and relaxed, directly relates to those 4 seals of Dzogchen Semde, nothing to do. What is informing the nothing to do? Equanimity. There's nothing to do because it's all equal. And you're already there. There's nothing to know because everything's equal. There's no reason to know more than you know now. There's nowhere to go because everywhere is this equally fine. And there's nothing to gain or attain because in your nature you're already perfect. And so is everybody else. So that's how you know if it's working. You know how it's not working if you want to do things, you want to know more things, you want to learn more stuff, you want to go to sexy places, you want to be able to have, all the special words. That means you've got practice to do. But you also know when it is working because joy, love, compassion, and equanimity are increasing. This is very simple. In Tantra, for example, people say, dreams, visions, etc., are signs of progress on the path. That's quite a trap, actually. But in this, all of that stuff just is stuff that comes and goes. I have a very kind of rich dream life, but it doesn't mean I'm a good practitioner in any way, shape, or form, actually, at all. So, it's these other things, joy, love, compassion, and equanimity, that are the true measure of whether or not your practice is working. All right. So I'll just repeat this little Pith instruction for you to finish this part, and then we'll have a short break, and then we'll do a question and answer session. Gaze at the sky and let the view establish itself. Gaze at the sky and let the view establish itself. It couldn't be easier. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to know. There's nowhere to go. And there's nothing to gain or attain. Just gaze at the sky and let the view establish itself. This is quite powerful. All right, so we'll wind up that part of the evening, and we'll have a little break, and then we'll come back and do a Q&A. But I just want to repeat this for you. If you think this can't possibly work, how can just sitting still and being silent and looking at the sky, or having your eye closed in corpse pose, you're just lying on the ground, you're just letting things be as they are. There's a Dzogchen phrase, leave everything as it is. So even if the mind is running, even if, you're agitated, even if you're bored, just leave it as it is. By not feeding it, by not intervening, eventually it quietens. It is that fascination machine that is our dualistic mind just is bored into breaking. It just breaks. And then your ultimate nature is there. Always is, always was. But then you're with it. You're not distracted by these passing fascinations that we have. So boredom is kind of important. And if you are an artist of any kind, you'll know that there's something about repetitive tasks, just keep doing this repetitive task over and over and over again, that eventually the dualistic mind just goes, yeah, I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. And it just gone. And then you're in what they call a flow state. No thought, no sense of time passing. It's not the same as Rigpa, true nature of mind, but it's a kind of ordinary kind of version of it. There's no thought, time passing you can't sense time passing, and you're completely absorbed in what you're doing. right? That's because you've been doing repetitive behavior and the dualistic mind has just gone, I'm out of here, I'm done. And it just goes. So likewise, when they're training people to draw, they get them to just look at the spaces in between shapes and just keep looking. And eventually the mind switches over and then they see and they can learn and they draw. That's how you learn to draw, by looking, not by drawing. It's a very interesting thing. You can suddenly see what's there and you can draw. Likewise with the Sufis, they used to get people to do profoundly repetitive behaviors. Spinning is one of them, whirling dervishes. But the more common one was filling a bucket with water, but the bucket had holes in it. So they would be up above like a trough or a channel or a drain. And they'd all be sitting there with their buckets looking at a wall, and they just have move water from one bucket to the other, and the buckets and the bucket they're moving the water to has holes in it. So it just never fills. So and they're told to not stop until they fill the bucket, which of course they cannot do. So it's just this repetitive, constant activity of pointlessness, and eventually the dualistic mind just collapses, right? And then their version of, they would call it, meeting the beloved, becoming one with the beloved, whatever their language is. We would say that they're recognizing the true nature of mind. That's our language. All right, so boredom is your friend. All right, we'll pause here and have a 5-ish minute break, and then we'll come back for the Q&A. Okay, everyone, I think that's been about 5 minutes. Before we proceed to Q&A, I want to read out a Pith instruction from Jamyang's book. I've put in the chat the cover of Jamyang's book so you can see the book that I'm talking about. I just want to read this out and then we'll sit with it in silent stillness. So, just to repeat, when we say rest in silent stillness or sit in silent stillness, we mean the actual posture doesn't matter. You can be in meditation posture, you can be sitting in a recliner, you can be in a lounge chair in the backyard, you can be in any position you want, you can be lying down on the ground. The position doesn't matter, as Guru Rinpoche always said, whatever position feels best is best. So this is up to you. You choose the posture or position that works for you. And then the rest of it is just kind of 3 things. The Dzogchen terminology is not necessarily helpful, but it is rest, body, speech, and mind in its natural condition or natural state, right? So what does that mean? So the body, you just leave it still. When you're asleep at night, when the mind is quiet, when the mind is settled down and there's no thinking, the body is completely still, completely, like a corpse, which is why we call it corpse posture when we're lying on the ground in meditation. The body's natural state is not this animated, thought-fueled frenzy that is how it is when we're awake. The body's natural state is complete stillness. It takes no effort for the body to be completely still. And yet, it is really uncomfortable for some people to sit still for long periods of time. They start to feel very agitated and anxious. But you need to ease into it. It doesn't mean to sort of force absolute and complete stillness. It means to relax into stillness. So if you're trying to force yourself to stay still, you just sort of relax and drop your shoulders and loosen up your joints and stuff, and then be still, You need to relax into stillness. And it really means stillness. You don't move. Now, you may blink. That's okay, because that's about thought. Blinking is always associated with a movement of thought. So That's okay. And also sometimes just dry eyes. It's a physiological thing. So just, it's okay to blink. It's fine. We're not saying just stare like wide open. It's just a gentle, soft look or gaze. It's gentle and soft, not forced open. You know, like in some traditions, you're forcing their eyes open. But that's not what we're talking about at all. It's gentle and soft. But you know, eventually the blinking will slow down because it is associated with thinking, blinking. All right, so with your body, you just stay totally still, but not forced, relaxed still, like you're asleep. You know, when you wake up in the morning, if you sleep well, which I do, I sleep like an absolute corpse, you feel very refreshed. You know, your body feels loosey-goosey. You feel all the tightness is gone from the day before. You feel good because being still is very beneficial. It's very rejuvenating. Okay. Now, with the speech also means energy. So we just let that be as it is in its natural state. So that also, speech energy also means breathing. So you just let it be. Don't try to control it. Don't put your attention on your breathing. Don't do anything at all with it. All right. When we say speech, we're meaning energy and breath and sound, talking, all those things. Because speech requires air moving through the vocal cords. So it's connected to breathing. So we just mean silent. No mantra, no prayer, obviously no talking, no humming, no singing, silent. And also just let your breathing be. There's a lot of so-called breath gurus out there who tell you that you need to breathe a certain way. No, just let your breathing be, and might not be great initially, but eventually it will get to where it needs to be, where it's sort of nourishing and relaxing and, you know, what's the word? Fueling and feeding your brain and body. There'll be enough oxygen. You won't need to do anything about it. So just leave it be. Don't do any kind of breathing exercise or try to breathe a certain way. Just leave it alone. Do not intervene. Let your breathing be as it is, even if it's technically not a good kind of way to breathe. Then with the mind, leave it alone. Just leave it alone. If it wanders, it wanders. It's fine. Just let it be. So long as you're still and you have your gentle gaze on the sky, how much the mind wanders is irrelevant. It's not important. This is not like other forms of practice where, you know, we're trying to focus the mind or quieten or tame the mind. We are trying to do that technically, but we're not doing anything for it to happen. We're letting it dissolve naturally. The dualistic mind is impermanent. It is not lasting. It has no inherent self-nature. It will dissolve. It cannot do anything else. It must dissolve, right? And all that changes in this practice over time is that the gap between new thoughts extends. It gets longer and longer and longer. And then there's none. All right. Now, and then you're in the nature of mind. You're in primordial, timeless awareness. Okay. So it's not the mind we're working with here. We're really just being still and having our eyes open. That's where we're doing something. We're just being still and we have our eyes open. That's it. Very simple. Inevitably, our constant need for stimulation, movement, fascination, new stuff means that the dualistic mind will just break. It won't be able to handle that stillness and that doing of nothing, that complete doing of nothing. It will not be able to handle it and it will break. And we will be bored on the way. But that's okay. All right, so I'm going to read this Pith instruction from Jamyang's book. And I just want to give you a sense of how you might do it, you know. So you could read it aloud or not, up to you. But I will read it to you. And then we'll just sit quietly with it in total stillness. I mean, we're indoors and we're not really looking at anything, so you can close your eyes or whatever. So in the corpse pose, lie in whatever position is comfortable. Close your eyes. Just let everything be. Just let everything be. All right, so this is the Pith instruction. Relax. Relax into joy. Relax into love. Relax into compassion. Relax into equanimity. Relax into freedom. Just relax. So we won't sit with that very long because we've got a video running. It's not very fun to watch people just sitting silently on a video. But you get the picture. Repeating instructions, because they come from a place of practice, place of experience, they have a power that the words by themselves shouldn't have. And if written by someone else, weirdly, wouldn't have. It's a very odd thing. But some kind of transmission is there when someone has practice experience and they're writing the Pith instruction from a place of non-dual awareness or a place of devotion, which is much the same thing. Something that Jamming said today, which I found very interesting. We'll repeat. Devotion is the four immeasurables: love, joy, love, compassion, equanimity, all arising at once. So it's a very interesting way to frame that, to frame devotion. Joy, love, compassion, equanimity, all arising as one is what devotion is. I think that's a very interesting way to think. And of course, it is the true nature of mind, because that is what the true nature of mind is. Those qualities are all that radiate from the true nature of mind. Nothing else radiates from the true nature of mind. All right, okay. And we can break that. We can sort of call that like wisdom and skillful means, or wisdom and compassion, whatever you want. But that's what those things are, the radiance of the true nature of mind. All right, so we'll do a Q&A. I will turn off the recording at this point to preserve your privacy.